the soul cry, the anger, the angry daughter, you're going to feel it in perimenopause. You're going to feel these moments of rage, moments of resentment, and move that, move it. That's what's going to help you. That's what this time in the cocoon is for, is to transform that energy into something beautiful. Hello, SoulNet friends.
Welcome, SoulNet listeners.
Hello, SoulNet friends.
Megan, I am so glad that you brought this topic up today. It's such an important conversation, and really what the pause in menopause or perimenopause is all about. Can we pause long enough to identify what we're feeling and take the actions to help us move through some of those emotions we may be experiencing, and really learning to attune to our authentic self? So important.
Yeah. Like, we've talked about it before a little bit, the second spring, menopause being this second adolescence, the second spring. And it had me thinking about, when we're young adults and we're going through puberty and we're becoming more independent, right? We are untethering from kind of that parental hold, right? The parents that have kind of controlled our destiny. Now we kind of are untethering a little bit and becoming more independent. And I am finding in my experience, and also with people that I walk with, I'm finding that this menopause stage, this perimenopause, these years of transitioning, it's like we are untethering again. Like our souls are kind of like like crying to be free. And it had me thinking about what we are untethering from. And I was thinking about how I feel like an adolescent who wants that independence, we now want our complete independence from things that we've, kind of attached our worth to. I want to kind of untether from maybe attachments that aren't healthy. So I wanted to bring that forward as like the second spring, where we become more self-assured. We attach our worth to what it feels like to be more self-reliant, like less dependent on others for our worth, and more free and believing and trusting in ourself. Right? So how does that resonate for you?
It's so powerful. I hear what I also work with in many clients is like unlearning our conditioning allows a blooming of that second spring. And they almost go hand in hand, that when we start to look at how we've been programmed and trained in our upbringing, including our young adulthood, because it's not just our childhood home, it's also like our first love or first big relationship or our first big career time period, or those kind of like imprinting times of our lives create that conditioning and our beliefs at the time. I should do this in order to, I need to do this in order to feel validated or relevant. Like a lot of it is around relevancy because of our lack of connection to our own self-worth, just because of our conditioning, being raised by parents who also have unprocessed trauma. And it's all unconscious. And then we get to midlife and this unconscious starts to bubble to the surface, because that's what seems to happen to all of us in midlife. And we have the opportunity, like you say, to have our second spring as we unlearn.
Yes.
So I love the topic. It's so relevant to all of us.
It's like an invitation to honor your independence, right? To honor your journey, So we often find ourselves confronting things from our past and things that we may have learned and been trained to think and believe. And we start to confront it at this stage.
Exactly.
And I think of it in my own body as that part of myself, the armor that we kind of put on over the years to protect that little part of ourselves, that vulnerability. That's like the soul, the vulnerable, loving, honest truth telling part of ourselves that we've over the years have to protect when we're out in society. How do we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to be truthful and honest? And it's about finding safe spaces.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
And do you guys feel like, how we've talked about a little bit how so many changes of the hormone levels are going on during this time of life. And so we might be in one place for a couple months and then we might be somewhere else. And this brings up all sorts of different things if we're paying attention to what those messages are telling us. So for me, as an example, I've been pretty stable in my health for a long time. And I'm revisiting conversations I had with myself 20 years ago, and they are due to hormonal fluctuations changing what happens. We know illness shows up, in midlife, especially for women. Like it's crazy. The things that we think we're doing okay with, that all of us can show up: heart disease, autoimmune diseases, cancers, like you name it. It all starts to kind of come forth. And we're really vulnerable for this little period of time.
That's right.
And I feel like there's an ebb and flow because it's such a long time that we go through this perimenopause. So some of it might be the physical body, which is calling for a lot of us. Some of it might be the emotional body. We know anxiety issues showing up more and more in women during this time too. And that changes so quickly. So you work through your practices to kind of find some semblance of balance. And then you got to find 6 months later or 3 months later, you're even maybe the next day.
Exactly.
It's like having PMS, extreme PMS all the time.
Yeah. So how do we support ourselves, supporting yourself through all of these changes without resisting them, right? Because we're kind of programmed to fix, resist change, right? We don't like change necessarily, and especially with our bodies, right? So how do we soften those edges? How do we accept that change is a part of the life cycle? The seasons, we are the seasons, we're changing. How do we accept that and help ourselves through it without this need to fix, right? So we've talked last episode with Islena about the health of the mind, with Dayna, the health of the body. And I wanted to offer that this is a time for women to be vulnerable, to listen in, to take care of themselves first.
Yes.
Like, when do we do that?
Exactly.
When they're 70.
When they're 70? Is that when women decide that it's time to take care of themselves first?
I don't want to wait that long.
No. So I wanted to offer that this time, I think, invites us to, for the first time ever, start to put yourself first and know that that's okay.
Yeah.
And know that that's okay. So when we are together and we find these safe spaces and safe containers to be vulnerable, to talk about the hard things, to feel the hard things. I think it's about making time for that. And that is about putting ourselves first. I've had to do it in my own house. With my children, they're teenagers. They have needs. My mom is still alive. She has needs. In our work, we're attending to others' needs always. This time for me, for my soul, has been about spending time with myself, learning to be by myself.
Yes.
Learning to trust myself, put my own needs first. I not suppress my needs any longer to please others.
Wow.
So does that resonate for you?
This resonates with me 1,000%. And I think all of our listeners as well. So to answer your question, 1,000%. I just really want to respond to Meg's share and how relevant it is to, I would say, most women at our stage of life. I sent something to you guys this morning that I would love to share if I can, because it feels like it really speaks to our audience and to what women go through, even if they might not be the archetype that this quote talks about. But I'm going to share it with you guys. No one talks about the angry daughter. She's the daughter that no one has ever worried about because she was always hyper independent. She's the one who used to be so patient empathetic, loving, caring, and understanding, until it got to the point where she was drained, emptied out, and crying from everyone leaning on her. She got worn out from all the responsibilities, from people pleasing to constantly adjusting herself to everyone else's needs and being everything to everyone all at once. Now she's always tired, frustrated, angry, irritated, and depressed, but she still shows up and still provides, still stands tall, but she's at her breaking point. She doesn't know how much more she can take living this way. She just wishes someone would show up for her the way she does for everyone else. I don't know who wrote that, but it spoke so eloquently to me about who I was a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I was that angry daughter, and I had to kind of, like Meg shares, break out of that old conditioning and liberate myself in midlife at this time of menopause to give myself permission to live my own life.
Yeah.
And I'm still the angry daughter, but I just don't do the things as much as I used to.
You don't act out the same way.
And we can laugh together, on this soul net in our community. We
Always.
can laugh together over the joys and pains of menopause.
Yeah. I want to thank you for bringing up those words, because the energy of the angry daughter
Yeah.
is what a lot of women feel
Oh, yeah.
in perimenopause and menopause.
Yes. 1,000 times yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that is the energy that's coming forth from the soul space. It is the soul cry, the cry of the angry daughter.
Yeah. And I do want to validate for our listeners and for us too that that's healthy anger. And if we don't express that, we will get sick. And that's not our lesson for our soul to get sick. Getting sick is a lesson to become healthy and free and liberate ourselves. We have enough life force energy and free will to liberate ourselves in this lifetime with these amazing tools that we have access to, community, like being here in this community. We just have access that we can utilize. And it's hard. I want to acknowledge that it's really hard work. It's the hardest work we'll ever do.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is.
But I also find, to like clarifying that too, I feel like it is also the most rewarding. Like when I am in the deepest, darkest places, when I come out of those deep, dark places, it's like I said earlier about the extreme joy is actually like those extremes are amazing. Really, we want to be balanced in the middle.
Yeah.
But I do find the darkest days are often followed by the dawn, right?
It's true. Duality.
There's a reason. Yeah, there's a reason these sayings have come about over time.
And I think about it too when you talk about healthy anger and like feeling into this and really transforming that anger into joy, into creativity, into something that's going to liberate us and have us feeling whole, right? We want to transform that anger.
Yeah.
And I think about my mom who never did that.
Yeah. Expression of healthy anger is like a purification. It's not a victimhood. It's like a flash of energy that we can use, kind of like riding a horse. You can use that energy and just like, okay, I'm going to write this poem now and I'm inspired.
Totally.
I can see Meg doing that, right?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I've done that. I've literally written from a place where I felt suffocated.
Yeah.
And then I moved that energy, like that wild horse just moves, right? And jumps over the fence.
Exactly.
You move it. Oh, it's good. It's healthy movement.
It's good and healthy.
David Hawkins' work would talk about that, that anger has an action to it, has an energy to it, like has a real, whereas things like, sadness, depression, apathy, they're very like static and unmoving. But, and he has, of course, the map of consciousness that goes up all the way through these different emotions and varying vibrational levels. And anger is where actually things do start to come around. And so it's healthy for us to go there. We just don't stay there.
Exactly.
Right? That's the most important. And I think you hit the nail on the head with what that act, whether it's writing, whether it's movement. Movement is such a great one. I always like to think, find the feelings. What are you feeling? Is it anger? What's the emotion? And then when you've kind of reconciled that, Now go move, go breathe. I do a lot of like ball slams when a client has been going through a really hard time and I know they're kind of coming out of it. I will use things like a big breath and a ball slam.
Yeah.
So you've got to like, you're getting that out from the diaphragm out. You're using the sound vibration. And then you've got something to, especially for men, but I gotta tell you, some of my women are so badass. Like you give them a punching bag, you give them something to hit, like, you give them something to slam against a wall or lift a heavy weight. We need that too, or a heavy pounding run. I don't know if you can pound out your pages, Meg, but it sounds like that's your way.
No, it moves through. It moves through words and written. You can just really hammer it out on the page.
The pen is the sword.
Yeah, the pen is the sword. Exactly. Exactly. The soul cry, the anger, the angry daughter, you're going to feel it in perimenopause. You're going to feel these like moments of resentment, and move that. Move it.
Yeah.
That's what's going to help you. That's what this time in the cocoon is for, is to transform that energy into something beautiful. Yeah. Turn the metal into gold, right? Different ways of thinking about it, but that's really part of this soul journey at this time.
Yeah.
Well, I think you were so right there, Meg, too. So as our people pleasers and our dutiful selves, also giving ourselves permission to feel anger, because a lot of us will suppress that because we're afraid of it. And we feel like, I feel like you guys have done such a good job of acknowledging the, the parental pieces and being okay with feeling angry at your mothers, for me too, I allow myself to be angry at my dad or even at my mom for like allowing patriarchy. So can we allow ourselves the full expression of the emotions we're experiencing without putting them back down and judging ourselves for saying, oh, no, you need to be a dutiful daughter. How could you possibly say that about your mother? She raised you.
I think the soul journey is to allow yourself to feel it, to be honest with yourself, to really honor your emotions from that time without blame, without attaching any blame or, I just think it's just allowing it to flow. So again, the importance of that movement, that wild movement, because to then go into another negative space like blaming or comparison or this or that doesn't honor the soul piece. That's actually honoring the ego.
Yeah. Because the negative, as you described, the other negative emotions are the second arrow.
Yeah, exactly.
First arrow is the experience. So be with the experience. And if it's painful, it's painful. And healthy anger is like a flash of energy. Because you asked a question earlier, Meg, about how do we help ourselves? By this specifically, what you're talking about is be with your actual experience inside of you. So if there is anger, it is a flash of energy to help you take you to the next step. It's actually energy to get you to the next lily pad and step of like, maybe it is time to say no. Maybe it is time to stand up. Maybe it is time to go from being small to taking a bigger breath, breathing yourself bigger in the moment and being able to say the word that needs to come out that could not come out because of fear. So we have to have anger to help us do those things because it gives us that flash of energy. And then when the energy moves through us, it's kind of like we've taken a shit and now we're like, I can be now with the experience.
Totally.
What I've realized in my own practices with others and being out, with nature therapy or through meditation with others, I had to learn how to be comfortable in my aloneness. And I feel like that cocooning in perimenopause really calls on us to get comfortable there. And for listeners who are not feeling super comfortable in their stillness, in their quiet, I would offer practices that worked for me to begin that journey. You guys probably began it earlier because, as a yoga teacher and as a trainer, you guys may have learned this earlier. But I found that finding a meditation teacher online and joining like a Zoom. So I started doing these 30-day practices in the mornings, and I was learning how to be alone in the comfort of my own body, in the comfort of also my own space, so in my home, but I was in community. There was somebody guiding and it was on the Zoom, and I could see some people had their cameras on and some people had it off, but I was still in community. But I was learning how to be with my breath and how to be in my body and how to feel safe in my own space.
I'll say that was one of the things that was my first year to study Ayurveda. I tried meditation before that, mostly guided, and I hadn't really had a lot of success with it. Movement was kind of my meditation. And then I noticed that it was no longer having the effect anymore. And part of this is, of course, my long-term like kind of health journey that's called me to, look at my stress levels and what I'm holding. I noticed that when I was on the school journey, that was part of the curriculum, was to meditate twice a day. And we did it on our own. That was part of the understanding. And then we did it together when we got together. Every class that we went into, we opened with a short meditation to get everybody into our heart spaces. And then, of course, through that process, we learned to be a teacher. And now that's something that I do with my clients. And I do that, like Islena does with a class. I will meditate with my clients over Zoom. I actually find Zoom is actually better for that because people are in their home spaces, and there is often a sense of safety from my perspective, but I don't teach in big groups. So I think however you find that, and it can be from a friend that offers that, it can be what you're offering, Megan, which is so beautiful. It can be, showing up for a yoga class with Islena that just holds that space, beautifully for those masses too, right? It doesn't matter what it looks like, and you can find it in a number of different ways. But I agree with you, that's such a big part of learning to be comfortable with ourselves.
I notice when I'm co-regulating with other nervous systems, it is very validating. And that could be a personal experience too, because I grew up an only child with a lot of feelings of loneliness. So when I'm in community and there is connection, that's very validating to my system, very soothing to my system. So I acknowledge that as just a primal need of my nervous system that didn't get met in childhood. So it makes sense that my soul craves that and feels good in that. And I don't make it wrong because it doesn't feel like codependency. It just feels like, community. We're doing this together. We're helping each other, lift each other up together.
I love that too. And I find that a really strong resonance, not only for myself over the years, because I've found that when someone has been going through something that are also on the spiritual journey, and so it's not just me. And I notice that I offer that to my clients a lot too.
Yep.
As coaches, we get exposure to a lot of different groups often. So you can see the common threads, not only what are happening in the larger collective, but also in those little microcosms of our engagement with each other. And so I notice when I hear some of the language that might come out from a client, and I say, I notice the threads, the common threads that we're all experiencing. And when I say this is part of something bigger than just yourself, they always respond to me how good it feels to know that they're not alone in it. Their individual experiences might be slightly different presentations of things, but there's this understanding that they are not going through all of that alone, or they're not crazy in their mind. We've used that language too, because when the soul is starting to come through, I feel like these earlier years, as the soul is like trying to come through more clearly, that we're dancing more between our ego and this higher self. And so we're not quite sure which messaging is what, and if we are going crazy. So when someone validates us a little bit and said, yes, this is happening, this is normal, it gives us a sense of peace within ourselves.
Totally.
Yes, it does. Yes,
That's
it does.
so huge.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. It is a dance of, like old patterning and ego self, and the soul kind of crying out and saying, hey, hang on.
What about me?
We're past that. We're past that. We're beyond this. You're right. It's like this kind of tension between the two selves.
And depending on what our support circle is,
yes,
that can be really isolating, because if we're surrounded by people that are still in their ego development and not even questioning some of this soul journey, we feel more and more isolated.
Yeah.
So seeking out community, so important.
Totally.
Yeah, it is. It is so important.
1,000%.
We need our soul friends.
I think that's another big piece too, is that a lot of people, when they go through this time, we've got family, we've got kids, we've got all friends that don't
Yep.
align, like our values are not maybe aligned
Mhm.
because we're starting to stand in our truth a little bit more. We're starting to listen in
Exactly.
and unlearn. There's so many
Yep.
changes that happen at this stage. And I think honoring your inner truth, helping yourself, find some community where you can be safe in your vulnerability, I think is really a key part of this transition. I wanted to end on that note.
Mm.
And I'd like to just offer our listeners a few ways to kind of lean into this.
Lovely.
We've touched on communities, finding some safe containers to be vulnerable. We've touched on getting comfortable in our bodies with those truths, finding a safe place to be comfortable in our aloneness, not our loneliness,
Mhm.
but with ourselves, putting ourselves first,
Mm.
Yeah.
right? Meeting our needs, listening in.
Yeah.
Liz Gilbert has a practice, a spiritual practice that she does, which is writing a letter every morning to yourself from love.
Mm.
Like the idea is that, again, this self reliance, like not depending on others to love us, but loving ourselves,
Mhm.
not depending on others to fill our needs for love, but relying on ourselves,
Yes.
right? So becoming attuned to writing a note every morning or a little letter to yourself from love.
Yeah.
If you want more information on that, you can look up Elizabeth Gilbert's love letters if you want to get a little bit more familiar with what that is.
What a beautiful offering. Yeah, I love that.
And the other thing is another book that touches on the soul journey and gets into the spiritual kind of transformation that is menopause is Wise Power. So these are two British women. They run a school called the Red School in the UK. And this book is like a Bible for anyone going through perimenopause and menopause. I would offer that as one book that can help you wrap your head around not just the physical and the mental and the hormonal changes, but also how it's all leading us down this path, the spiritual path
Mm.
of connecting with soul self
Lovely, Meg.
and the higher power and the kind of that next kind of phase of growth.
I love that so much. And for our listeners that don't know, Meg is our resident author as well as a forest therapy guide. And I am not a writer per se, but writing has become a very spiritual practice for me. Reading is a big part of my spiritual practice as well too. And those kind of books and the information that I take in, not only just, data and science, but I want the soul. And that's how my soul feels connected is through some of the readings that I do. So I love those offerings of the books and the love letters, Megan. Thank you so much for that. They've been really helpful in my life. And so they're really great reminders to me and to all of our listeners today.
Thank you for allowing me the space today to share my heart, my soul in the Soul Net. Love y'all.
Love you too. I'd stay here all the time, Meg, if I could. Thanks for being with us today, friends, as we awaken to the messages of the soul in midlife. Join us in our next episode as we explore the power of love versus the love of power. Till next time.
Please note that the information we share in our episodes is not medical advice. If there's anything that piques your interest and curiosity, please follow up with your healthcare provider. Thanks for listening.